Hey everybody, welcome back to Super Bowl 54 in Miami, and we're at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Action Sports Jax on ESPN 690. Brent Martineau, Austin Lane, and Doug Kezirian, and well, we've brought betting into the world of sports. Finally, right?
Right. You know, you never. I've been asked, do we ever think we'd be here? And I was like, well, certainly not in 2020, right? I mean, at least 2019 even. But it was a evolution that was inevitable, and I say that in a very positive way, just because those like myself that are really in it since we were kids doesn't mean the rest of the world is. And we got to be aware and receptive to leagues that are multi-billion-dollar corporations who are like, why are we running to bring in something that's considered a vice or whatever you want to call it? I know the stigma was a little overblown, but at the end of the day, I understand they were on a fact-finding mission, and slowly but surely they learned what we already knew, that it's another way to look at sports, another way to root stuff. It's just like fantasy and all that jazz. But it just took them time to sort of understand that, which I think is okay.
Yeah.
Especially when they have so much at stake.
Absolutely. Doug Kezirian hosts Daily Wager on ESPN. How big of a jumping off point? Because ESPN, everybody kind of follows suit. So for them to go in like this with this show and embrace it and see where we're headed kind of in our sports world, does that make a big play?
I would think so. To your point, ESPN is visible. But I want to remind everyone, that's not the first thing ESPN's done around betting. We had the chalk section on ESPN.com. We've had podcasts before. I was doing SportsCenter hits, very newsy sort of lane. But to your point, if we went out there with, I don't know, like an elephant picking up, who do we pick in this game? And then throwing darts and like chugging beer and like being like reckless and, unpolished, I think that would be bad for the future of betting, because the leagues would be like, we don't need this junk. But when we're treating it like SportsCenter, we have a very mature conversation. We can still have fun, and we do. But I think just having like a very stats-driven show, having opinions of guys like Louis Riddick and Tim Legler and other non-bettors, so to speak, but analysts and people who play the game, and just having a conversation that's just a little different and involves more numbers that happen to deal with point spreads, and having an adult conversation about it. I think that does send the right message for the future of kind of how betting is perceived.
I like it, too, because bottom line, Austin, in our business, I've been doing this for 20 years, it was faux pas before to do that stuff. And now fantasy football has opened that door. Obviously, the betting in general
I'm addicted,
has
man.
loosened. And there's a lot of fun things to it tied into sports. I mean, listen, the NFL has become the NFL in a lot of ways because of gambling and fantasy football and those kind of things. It's not just that reason, but it's become. So it's really interesting, this new wave. And your show's doing well. Daily Wager. I always like shows that kind of started around when we did. We started our show last January.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, we're connected.
So we're trying. Well, we're just trying to keep pace, man.
Well, I think one of my bosses had this phrase a long time ago, even before Daily Wager launched, was betting is another way to create a conversation about sports. I mean, you can just say, hey, the over-under is 55, like on a Tuesday. It's better than, like, what's the X factor? It's like, hey, over-under is 55. Teddy Bruschi, which defense has the best chance to stop the other team's offense? Mm-hmm. Like, just something like that.
Yeah,
or,
absolutely.
It's a shootout, game in the 60s. Something like that. Or which quarterback makes them – I mean, it's an entry point. And when you produce content like you guys do and we do and everyone else does in the media, you need sort of presentation. And you can't just say, all right, let's talk about X factors, or let's talk about Mahomes. Well, what about Mahomes? Well, he struggles against this, or Mahomes has never won outright as an underdog, or whatever it is. It's just another entry point. And when you kind of need them in football when you have 7 days between games, right?
So, Doug, you mentioned obviously the Super Bowl here, football, that this game coming up is going to be a lot of wagers going on the game and just kind of those off-the-field bets as well.
Sure.
But I'm also an MMA fighter right now. I'm currently an MMA fighter, and I want to ask you a little bit about with the Conor McGregor-Donald Cerrone fight, right, where they always say you shouldn't place wagers when you're emotional. Well, fighting, man, it causes people to be really emotional. What do you see in the world of MMA betting? I mean, is it kind of on the rise now, especially after that Conor McGregor fight?
Well, it's kind of parallel with the gate. So the Conor McGregor drives the gates. Well, he also has the most bet-on fights as well. And it makes sense because it's the commercials, I always said this before, like betting became legal and started to become legal. There's commercials out there that say you can go to a bar and watch a game, or a fight in this case, with a bucket of beers, right? $50. Why can't you spend that $50 on a parlay ticket or a money line bet on McGregor and you'd have the still same sort of excitement with your buddies watching the fight, and then you go home. It's kind of like it's a concession concept. That's what they call it in Europe. It's a concession. It's not like a tangible thing where you buy and you go to the game, you come home with a program or a foam finger or a souvenir, whatever.
Sure.
You're going home with an experience, much like a ticket to the game is. Right, you come home with a ticket stub or even a digital ticket stub, but you have a digital ticket as well when you make a bet. So in general, it can be used as sort of entertainment, like not purposes, because that means nothing. You spend money on a bucket of beers. You didn't lose $50 on a bucket of beers.
Yeah.
So you can spend money on a bet and not lose money on a bet.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is the bucket of beers doesn't give you a chance to win
more beer.
Right. But I think that concept, to your point, is it can be emotional. It can be a sort of a fun concession experience, but it is fun to also try to make money too. I mean, like that's what gambling is.
Absolutely. And by the way, the bucket of beers, a few more calories.
Oh, a few more calories as well. Yes. Yeah.
Well said.
Brent Martineau, Austin Lane, Doug Kezirian here. Action Sports Shacks on ESPN690. All right, I guess we should talk about this game.
I suppose.
Are you surprised at all by any of the betting lines?
No. I've been saying it for as a football fan, I'm thrilled for this game. As a bettor and media member, I'm miserable. I have no opinion on this game whatsoever. I've never had less conviction on a Super Bowl. Now, I've lost those games that I've had some conviction on, but I literally think it can go. And if you told me the Niners win by 10, lose by 10, whatever. Now, that's every game, but I really think it's such a fun, interesting, and compelling matchup. I just don't see a way I could personally bet on one the Niners or Chiefs to win. I don't think there's an edge in my mind. Now, there's prop bets out there and things like that interest me, but ultimately, I think it's a coin flip game. I think the Chiefs are getting the 1.5 because Mahomes is much more visible and player and popular player in the public, the recreation bettors. They dictate the point spread more than in the Super Bowl than in any other game. So given Mahomes' popularity, I think the point spread makes sense, but I'm not surprised at all.
That's fascinating to me, though. You're the second person that said that, too, and I thought it would be opposite, Austin. I feel like the Chiefs – to me, the Chiefs are the greatest team to bet on. Yeah. Because they just feel like they're going to score at will. And if you feel like you can score at will, you feel like you're going to win.
You think they should be favored by more?
I thought they would be.
They might by kickoff.
Well, 7 or 8, but I thought it would be like a 4.5 point spread or something like that.
Right, but the value of that 3 and 4 and 4, it's just I can't explain to you. 18% of games 2 years ago in the regular season, 17% of games last year landed 3. Now, it wasn't always the favorite of 3 landing 3, but just those key numbers you talk about in the betting space, 3, 4, 6, and 7. 3 is the most important, 7 is the second most. If you there's no way you can go through 3. There's no way, because the Niners' power rating. The Niners struggled this year when they were banged up on defense, didn't have Kittle, I think, for 2 games, maybe more. I can't recall exactly. But at full strength, they are so dominant. Now, the Chiefs' defense picked up in the last month and change. But at the end of the day, I hear you, and if the Chiefs – I have a producer. I have 2 producers on the show. One thinks the Chiefs are going to blow them out. The other one thinks the Niners are going to blow them out.
Yeah.
So, they can both be wrong. They can both be – they're not going to both be right. But I can't fault you for thinking that, because when the Chiefs are not dropping passes, they're indefensible. Yeah. But the Niners' offense played a little possum in the second half. They're in the playoffs. Remember, they went into New Orleans and had a shootout and won, and Jimmy G was great. So I think it's – but I could be wrong. But I think it's perfectly lined. Well,
and and I kind of agree with you a little bit here too as well. Where what scares me, if you want to bet, with the spread, or if you want to go the over/under, listen, I'm all about the over, right? You want to see a high-scoring game, have some fun, but it depends to me on the 49ers. To me, they're the ultimate wild card, right? Because you mentioned they put up how many points against New Orleans? Well, they went to Washington in bad weather, put up 9 points and still won.
Right.
So from where I'm standing is, what kind of 49ers team are you going to get? Are they just going to slow the game down a lot and just pound
that
the
wasn't
rock?
just bad weather. That was torrential downpour. I think it was 0-0 at half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So that was sloppy as can be. It was on the road. Oh, look, if you – again, I can believe any outcome.
Yeah.
I really can.
Which is cool.
Yeah, which makes it fun as a football fan, but miserable as a bettor.
Yeah.
Are there some intriguing bets in this for you?
Yes.
Maybe prop bet-wise?
Yeah, so I have a couple prop bets I like. I did the podcast this week. Bill Barnwell from ESPN.com was on it. He brought up a couple that really caught my eye. So, Juszczyk, 10.5, I think, is his total for receiving yards. Could be one reception. I just think the linebackers are the weakness of the Chiefs' defense, and I think Juszczyk could be a really useful guy. And these guys are really creative. These guys, meaning Shanahan and Andy Reid, they're going to get their H-backs involved and all that stuff. I just really think it's going to be very just very well thought out game plan, and I think Juszczyk gets a catch. I think Blake Bell over 1.5 receiving yards is a play for me.
Jaguar.
Yeah.
And there's one play I really like. it's the Chiefs not to score a rushing touchdown at plus 250.
Ooh.
Okay, so 2.5.
Pretty good value.
Look, I mean, you're looking maybe the Chiefs score 2 touchdowns, maybe they score 4. All right, Mahomes throws for a couple, and that's it. One side, like around the goal line, they even do pop passes. They do shovel passes to Kelsey, right inside trap shovel passes, whatever you want to call it. So it's not just straight runs inside the 5. For plus 250 on one team against that front 4 of the Niners, I'll take a little piece of that.
All right, we got to let you go, but before we let you go, do we someday see a Super Bowl, maybe someday soon, where we are betting inside the stadium?
Yeah, because right now the Giants and Jets games, you can bet inside the stadium with your phone because it's in New Jersey. Golden Knights games in Vegas next year and Raider games. So as long as there's a Super Bowl in a state that has legalized betting, you're going to see it. I mean, I think that was the final straw, so to speak, for legalized or for these teams that really understand, like, they're already betting from the seats. And it's funny, I know David Stern recently passed, and I was working in Vegas in 2007 when the All-Star game was there, and we brought up the gambling, and will Vegas get a pro team? He's like, I think gambling's fine. He's like, I just don't want the crowd to be yelling about a random occurrence like an over-under during the game. Yeah. And I said, how's that different than tacos? That's a team total. Yeah. Right? That's a team total. We want tacos, right? Like, and the world's not ending.
Yeah.
Like, we're okay. Exactly. 2 free throws, 2 missed free throws back-to-back consecutively in the fourth quarter. That's a prop bet.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely,
we're already there.
Good explanation. Doug Kezirian, Daily Wager, continued success.
Same to you guys, and happy 1-year anniversary coming up.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Too, coming up, and pay attention to Doug and all your betting on the Super Bowl 54 coming up this weekend. We'll be back. Action Sports Jacks on ESPN 690 from Super Bowl 54.